Hi, welcome to Musicians on the Record. I'm David Ward. This is the show where we bring you the musician's story. And this guy has got one heck of a story. He is a drummer, percussionist, conductor, talent and business agent in the music business, has worked with Elvis, Barbra Streisand, Judy Garland. The legendary Bobby Morris is on the show today. Welcome, Bobby.
Well, thank you very much, David, and thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my treat to have you on the show. And you have a new book. It's an amazing read. It's called My Las Vegas. For folks who are listening, pick this up right now. Go to hudsonmusic.com or amazon.com and read this book, because it's a musical history lesson is what I got out of it. It's fantastic. What was the inspiration to write this book right now, Bob?
The inspiration, David, was for many years, I've been asked by many people, my stories, but I've gone through in the entertainment business, in the music business, how everything evolved. And it all evolved from being a little boy, growing up in Europe and coming to this country and learning to play drums, and that I got my inspiration from my grandfather when I heard him in a marching band in Poland. And one thing leads to another, and it's kind of, you might say, baby steps. So you go from one level to another if you have the inspiration and if you have the will to do it. And I certainly had that. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, a lot of effort, but eventually it pays off. And it certainly paid off for me, because I have done nothing else but play music. And I've done nothing else but be involved in music, from playing wise, from handling acts, from performing with different big bands, from performing with jazz groups, modern jazz, and playing all kinds of different types of music, like Greek music with the different time signatures. And I was fortunate enough to get in with Latin bands in New York City, and they accepted me as one of them, because I learned how to play authenticate and played with authenticity, you might say, their type of music. And I was accepted by whoever I had played with, because I put a lot of effort in, and a lot of time and a lot of learning and a lot of perseverance.
You talked about in your book when you saw your grandfather in that marching band. What do you remember feeling when you saw him, and that is that first inspiration on the drums?
Well, actually, David, I was thrilled. It was absolute a thrill to me to hear him play in this marching band. And of course, I'm sure you're aware of and acquainted with military drumming.
Yes.
And I had the opportunity later on in my life to study military drumming from the NARD book, National Association of Rudimental Drummers.
Yes.
And so that inspired me to a point where when I was about 11 years old, and I had just arrived a very short time ago, and somehow or other, I learned how to speak English over the summer, and I saw an ad advertising the Benny Goodman Orchestra with Gene Krupa on drums, and I heard him on the radio, and I was thrilled. So I saved up my nickels and dimes, and in order to get to New York, it was a nickel on subway train, and it was a quarter to go to Paramount Theater and see Benny Goodman with Gene Krupa, and I got to tell you, I was hooked from that point on.
Amazing.
So as I was walking down Broadway, I passed by Wurlitz's, and there was a drummer playing, and he sounded wonderful. I asked him who his teacher was, and he said there was Henry Adler at the Whitby Hotel. So I found the Whitby Hotel. It was on 8th Avenue and 43rd Street in New York.
Yes.
And I saw Mr. Adler. I said, Mr. Adler, I would like to take lessons from you, and I really would appreciate it if you could teach me. He says, well, yes, I could take you on as a student. That would be $3 a lesson. So at the time, I thought it was kind of a lot of money, but I was shining shoes, and I figured, well, okay, $3 means I would have to shine 60 pair of shoes at 5 cents a pair.
Yeah, wow.
So I started taking lessons from him, and then one time I came in to the studio, and he said, I want you to hear this drummer. And I said, wonderful. So he brought this drummer in. There was about 6 months ahead of me, been playing for about 6 months before I came to study with Henry. And his name was Freddie Gruber.
Yeah.
And Freddie was absolutely wonderful.
Amazing.
And I was just starting, and I'm learning the rudiments,
Yes.
very slowly. And Freddie is playing it like a house on fire. So it encouraged me to work very, very hard.
Yes.
So I would practice 6 to 8 hours a day on a drum pad.
Wow.
Not drums. At that time, you practice until you got calluses on your fingers,
Yes. Yes.
So I finally felt that I almost caught up to Freddie. And so it got to a point where Henry Adler started featuring Freddie and myself with new students. In other words, to encourage him, you see what you could do if you practice.
Yes.
Type of encouragement.
Amazing.
And of course, from that day on, Freddie and I were very, very good friends, and that was many, many years ago.
Yes.
Of course. And of course, at that time, things started to happen, and I found that I loved 52nd Street. So about 14 or so, I would start going down 52nd Street and listening to jazz music, and finally I got a job playing drums in the Catskill Mountains, and it paid $15 a week. It was for 10 weeks. I didn't have drums, and I really didn't know how to play drums. I was a very good rudimental drummer on a drum pad.
Yeah.
So I went to a friend of mine who was working with a neighbor. His name was Sonny, and he was working with Freddie Slack Orchestra. And I asked him, how do you play a hi-hat? And he showed me how to play a hi-hat. And that hi-hat beat took me through the summer.
Wow.
See, my reading was wonderful, and my hands were good. I knew the rudiments, and I knew, how to read, but I didn't know how to apply it to drums. So I learned over the summer. I was making $15 a week. I didn't have drums. So I borrowed $150 from my father, and I promised I would pay him back. So we worked 10 weeks, and I saved up $150. All I needed was toothpaste and a toothbrush.
Right.
So at the end of the summer, I paid him back. And then the next summer, I got a job that paid $25 a week. And David, I got a tremendous amount of experience playing for shows as a young boy. And some incidents happened where I was playing for this particular show, and this comedian that had me, catch his comedy with a boom and a cymbal crash and whatever. So at this particular night, he was bombing. So he turned around to me, and he was blaming me for him bombing, you know.
Oh, yikes.
So of course I was only about 14 years old, and I really couldn't, maybe 15 at the time. Mm-hmm. So I remembered that incident, and the next summer when I got a job, I played for the same place, mm-hmm. and for the same comedian, and this time I went over to him before the show. I said, John, if you do that to me again that you did last year, I would be forced to. See, I was working out with weights and things like that.
Yeah.
I was preparing
yeah.
for this particular day, when anticipating
yes.
that he might pull the same thing on me.
Yeah.
And I said, if you do that, I would be forced to put you up against the wall and wring your neck.
Right.
So can I tell you that he respected me the whole summer and never pulled that again on me.
Fantastic.
And
yeah.
So, and anyhow, so I got more experience playing for more shows and reading, you know, and I thank Henry Adler for that.
Yes.
And
you had your Charles Atlas moment right there, Bobby, right?
I had my Charles Atlas moment. and let me tell you something. I believe other drummers probably went through that.
Sure.
See, when a comic is bombing, so they have to blame it on somebody.
Right.
So usually the drummer becomes the fall guy, you know.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So I've told that story, and the drummers have really appreciate what I had done, you know.
Yeah, don't mess with the drummer, right? So that's important.
Don't mess with the drummer. Do not mess with the drummer. No.
You know, you mentioned your dad before, and him helping you buy the drum set. I was also struck by in your book, you're talking about it was a huge sacrifice your whole family actually made when you came to America from Poland.
Yes.
Your family had to separate. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Well, yes, that was very tough. I came to this country in June 27, 1937, and that was 3 days before my 10th birthday. And unfortunately, though, my mother and my younger brother were not allowed to come because until my father proved that he could support us. Well, we came over on the ship called the Pilsudski, and my mother and brother were left in Wilno, Poland. And about a year and a few months later, they finally came over on the Pilsudski because he proved that he could earn a living and support them.
Good.
So on the way back, the Pilsudski was sunk by German U-boat, submarines.
Oh, no. Wow.
And that was the end of that. And, of course, Hitler marched into Poland.
Yes.
And created a lot of havoc, as history will tell you.
Right. Scary stuff, huh?
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
So my mother and brother came over, and it was wonderful to have my family. And times were tough.
Sure.
And, I was doing a lot of shining shoes and mowing lawns and delivering newspapers and polishing silverware and whatever I could. And the money that my father lent me, the $150 that first summer, I of course saved it up and paid him back.
That's wonderful.
And the next summer, I made $25 a week, and that was $250.
That's amazing.
So that was my money, but I still split it with him, and I opened up an account.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell the young musicians out there that are listening how important it is to be independent and to save your money when you're working, because you never know when a rainy day will come.
You bet. You bet. And that, there's highs and lows of a career, right? So it's, you obviously had the drumming bug, and you were very inspired playing all these shows. How did your folks feel about you saying, I want to be a drummer? And,
well, thank you for asking, David. My father was not happy with it at all.
Okay.
He said, what are you doing practicing 6-8 hours a day? You're never going to amount to anything. And so I certainly didn't get encouragement from my family.
Yeah.
And he said, look, if you work like a paper hanger like I do, you could make $25 a week. And, every week you can make $25 a week. I said, well, Pa, I don't want to be a paper hanger. I want to be a drummer.
Yeah.
So he said, well, you're never going to amount to anything. So this leads me into like going a few years ahead. And if you'd like to hear what transpired after that.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I found myself in Las Vegas, and after traveling with many bands like Charlie Barnett, Maynard Ferguson, Benny Carter, and working with the Swing and Sway with Sammy Kaye.
Yes.
And all kinds of Latin bands and Greek bands. But I found myself in Las Vegas because I heard what wonderful weather it was, because during my time with bands, I'm on the road and it's snowing and 10 below zero and it's horrible weather.
Right.
And I said, there must be a place on earth that has nicer weather, nicer atmosphere than this.
Sure.
So somebody, one of the musicians on the Charlie Barnett band said, well, there is a place it's called Las Vegas. It's a little bitty town out west. And so I remember that and I put it in the back of my mind. And so one night I was sitting at the Charlie's Tavern in New York, and somebody came in and said he was looking for a drummer to go to Las Vegas. Well, immediately my ears perked up. And as I said, I'll take it.
You bet.
I don't care how much it pays. Right. I was doing quite well working with Swing and Sway with Sammy Kaye, that
yes.
I was actually making very good money, and
nice.
And then working at night. After that, I would go to 52nd Street and do my jazz things. So anyhow, that's how I wound up in Las Vegas. Anyhow, getting back to what my father had said,
yes, that
you'll never amount to anything. I wound up, of course, in Las Vegas, I wound up playing with the relief band. So every single night I would play for a different star. And the regular house band would take off because they would be off that particular night. So anyhow, I got to know all the stars and they got to know me, and I made some very good contacts that way. Well, one of the stars in that particular time was Eddie Fisher.
Yes.
So I wound up Eddie. They each at one time or other asked me to travel with them, like people like K-Star and Frankie Lane and Tony Martin and Bobby Darin and many people. I played for the Rat Pack, for Lena Horne, where I met Benny Carter, and I played. He invited me to play for his orchestra at the Moulin Rouge, and which was the African, the town, the west side of town where there's only black people, not white people wouldn't even go there. But it was the most wonderful experience of my life because I played for the, for the Harlem, the wonderful shows out of Harlem. And Benny Carter was a tremendous musician, tremendous orchestra. And I was the only white guy in the band. And somebody asked him, how come you have a white guy in the band with all African-American guys? He said, well, because he plays like an African American guy. You know, he plays.
Yes,
and that's why I have him. I mean, you know, this fellow from Australia came in and wanted to hire the band, but he said no, but we need a black drummer. We can't have an all black band with a white drummer. He says, then I'm not taking the job. You know. Anyhow, that's another story in itself. Okay. And Joe Lewis was kind of the host. It was a very, very exciting days, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But getting back to what my father had said.
Yes.
I'm with Eddie Fisher, and I'm traveling. I'm doing a 26 theater tour with him and Buddy Hackett. And we wind up at Palace Theater in New York.
Yeah. And
then, and that was for about 6 weeks. And then I had another 12 weeks with Eddie at the Waldorf Astoria. So I invited my parents. They had never seen me play. They never seen me at any shows. They had never really been out of Brooklyn. And here I am with a suite at the Waldorf Astoria.
It's amazing.
And I invited them to see the show, and Eddie introduced them. And they were frozen stiff because the spotlight went on them, and it was, my God, they couldn't believe that there was a spotlight on them.
Sure.
So anyhow, at the end of the show, I invited my father to the cashier's cage because I was getting paid.
Yeah.
So the cashier started counting off $100 bills.
Yeah.
He went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12, 13, 14, 15. So I said, thank you very much. And I left, you know. Yeah. And my father said, what did you do, rob a bank? I said, no, Pa, this is what I get paid every week for playing drums.
Amazing.
I said, you once told me that, you know, you wanted me to be a paper hanger, but I wanted to be a drummer. So now I'm playing and I'm playing for some very important people.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was a very heartwarming story, and yeah, absolutely. And you know, thank God you followed your guidance with that and didn't go for the paper hanger. Did they change perception on that? Were they proud of your success?
They were very, very proud.
Yeah,
they were very proud, and of course they had never eaten in a restaurant, no less the Waldorf Astoria had Power of the Pen.
Yes,
at the Waldorf, you know.
Yeah.
And then of course many things happened thereafter. I'm traveling with Eddie to Mexico City. If it's in the book, but if you would like me to repeat it, I'll be happy to.
Would love it.
The book has some wonderful stories.
Yes, it does.
I'm at the El Forum Club in Mexico City, and a man came in. His name was. He introduced me to him. Eddie introduced me to the man as Dr. Goldberg.
Okay.
And I said, it's a pleasure meeting you, Dr. Goldberg. And he said, so this went on for 4 weeks. But at one time, at a point during the 4 weeks, I was getting married to my third wife. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the right one. So now I'm married 3 times. Mm-hmm. But she was a beautiful girl and holiday model in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, Eddie said, I want to be your best man, and he gives me $1,000 bill. And Dr. Goldberg says, I want to be your best man too. And he gives me $1,000 bill, and that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we go out to Tehuacán, Mexico, which is a suburb of Mexico City, and we get married, and there's a picture in the book of Dr. Goldberg, Eddie Fisher, myself, and a girl that was actually Dr. Goldberg's girlfriend, and she was also a girlfriend of Kennedy, President Kennedy.
Yeah,
and so we get married, and on the way back, Dr. Goldberg says, I'd like to invite you to my villa, you know, and to celebrate your wedding. I said, well, thank you. So he goes ahead, and then we drive up to the villa, and there's men with machine guns outside, and I come in, and Dr. Goldberg is cooking all this wonderful Italian food. And I said, Dr. Goldberg, excuse me for asking, but there's men with machine guns up in your roof. He says, well, Bobby, some people don't like me, but now that I'm your best man, my name is Dr. Goldberg. I said, well, what is it? Sam Giancana.
Wow.
And Sam Giancana was at that time kind of head of the mafia, and a wonderful man, a wonderful friend, and then people like the mafia type of people that like you, they will do anything in the world for you, and they're really wonderful. I met him through at one time when I was with Louis Prima Keely Smith, and that, of course, is another episode in the book that you might find quite interesting.
Yeah, can we talk about that?
Of course, we could talk about anything you want, David.
All right. Yeah, because, obviously this was a highlight of your career, starting to play with Louis Prima. And one of the things you are best known for is creating that shuffle. And I as a drummer, I want to hear more about that. So.
Okay. Well, can I tell you how it evolved?
Please. Yes.
Okay. Well, I had my own jazz group. And I was playing for many people in like Mel Torme and Cy Coleman, with my quartet. And I'm very happy. And I'm running sessions at the Black Magic in Las Vegas. And every night we would start at 2:00 in the morning and go till 10:00 in the morning, David.
Wow.
And every star in Las Vegas would come in to sit in. There were people that were appearing there, like Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. The Woody Herman Band was appearing, and the guys, I'm sure you know Al Cohn and Serge Chaloff and Zoot Sims, and people of that nature. And they would come in to sit in, and Frank Rossellino and Stan Kenton's band would come in. So I was very, very happy. I had my own trio at the Sahara, and I'm playing jazz, after hours, also at the Black Magic. Well, Louis Prima and Keely Smith came in with a band that was kind of a somewhat small version of his big band.
Okay.
And it was not quite coherent at that time musically, but Louis is such a great entertainer that they decided to keep him on. When he came back with Sam Butera and Little Red on trombone, Billy McCumber on piano, and Marta Rodriguez on bass, and Dick Johnson on drums. And it was 100% better. Well, anyhow, Sam Butera would come and sit in with us every night. And one night he came over to me. He said, Louis Prima would like to talk to you. So I said, well, what about? He said, well, I don't know. Why don't you talk to him? I think he wants you to come on the band, but I don't know. So anyhow, I came over and talked to him, and I really wasn't interested at the time because I was doing quite well. And he kind of hypnotized me, and he said, well, we're going to be doing the Colgate Comedy Hour, Frank Sinatra special, Dinah Shore, shows and
major TV shows.
Major TV shows.
Yes.
Ed Sullivan and whatever.
Wow.
And I said, well, how much you making, kid? How much you making now? So I said, I'm making $200 a week. He said, well, I'll give you $300 a week, So, and on top of that, it'll be, or maybe $350.
Yeah.
As on top of that, we're going to be doing TV shows, and I believe the scale is $350 for every show, and
wow.
And I'm about to sign a recording contract with Capitol Records. So, and I would really like you to join the group. I said, I'm thinking about this, and all of a sudden, you know, I have a wife and a few kids, and wow, that sounded pretty good to me. Yeah. The potential of making so much more money.
Of course.
I said, I'll come on, but I have an idea. Now, I see the drummer that I replaced was playing a shuffle thing with two hands on a closed hi-hat, which was kind of tinny and wasn't full. And I had an idea. I told him, and I want to practice with I want to run it by the piano player and the bass player, Billy McCumber and Amado Rodriguez. So I did, and I thought about doing the shuffle with the left hand against right hand time. So, you know, and accenting 2 and 4, and having the piano player playing dinga 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 dinga, and having the bass player accent 2 and 4.
Yes.
So we started on a slow thing. Just a Gigolo and I Got Nobody which was part of their repertoire at the time.
Yes, the original.
And Louis just flipped out. Louis just flipped out over that sound, but lo and behold, I didn't realize that he wanted it now on every tempo, and we were playing, you know, some ridiculous like tempos, you know, that so anyhow, it created a thing for me to practice.
Yes.
You know, I said, well, I better practice. Every night I would come in and practice about an hour or two before we would go on. So we would start up there at the up-tempo shuffle with accent 2 and 4. And it created a sound and that every group started to copy. And when we signed with Capitol Records and we did the first album, The Wildest, it was a big hit album. And everywhere I would go in Las Vegas, drummers were playing shuffle. It's saxophone players that emulate Sam Butera and so on and so forth.
That's amazing.
And so this went on for about 8 years. And one thing led to another, and many people came in to hear the group. It's in the book. Buddy Rich was with Harry James at the time.
Yes.
And I don't know if you'd like to hear this story, but as I said, one little thing leads to another.
Yes.
So Buddy Rich would come in every night. I never said hello to him because I heard from people that younger drummers would come over and say, and he would be kind of like fluff offish to them. And Buddy has a way of being having touches of sarcasm, cynicisms, and whatever. Yeah. And so I was eating breakfast at the Silver Slipper. I came in and he was sitting with Chick Keeney, a drummer with Freddie Bell, a very good drummer.
Okay.
And so I said hello to Chick. And so Buddy grabs my arm. He says, "What do you have to do when a down be told before you say hello?" He used words that I cannot repeat.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I said, "Well, I heard young drummers would come over, and you." I said, "Well, what do you think I've been coming in here for? You're a freaking animal,
Wow.
And
wow.
You call me an animal, man."
Yeah.
He says that nobody could do what you do and live.
It's amazing.
And it was very difficult. Physically, it was very, very difficult to play and to sustain an entire night. And where one medley goes into another, and you don't have time to wipe the sweat off your face.
Of course.
Physically, it was very, very difficult.
Can I ask you about that, Bobby? As far as like, what are we talking about? Is how fast of the BPM are we talking about? Beats per minute of these shuffles?
Okay, we're talking. I don't know exactly how to tell you how fast the whatever you're saying, whatever you're asking, but I can tell you this. Ding 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 ding. Okay, I'll give you an example. About a couple of years later, Keely Smith was doing an album for Reprise, Frank Sinatra's label, and they flew me in, and they had all the top players in Hollywood: Barney Kessel on guitar, Paul Smith, Joe Mondragon, Paul Smith on piano, Joe Mondragon, the Condoli brothers, Frank Vassalino on drum. I mean, they're great players.
Yes, legendary.
And Shelley Mann and Alvin Stoller were on staff.
Yeah.
And so I come in and with my suitcase, and I get behind the drums, and we open up with When You're Smiling in the Chic. Up there. A top tempo.
Yeah.
With the full shuffle going with the left hand against right hand time.
Yeah.
And I hear a rumbling in back of me. Holy God, holy this, whatever, from Shelley Mann.
Yeah.
And I assumed that he was kind of like, they didn't like what I was doing. Yeah. So I got up. When we got off the set, I said, "Something wrong, Shelley?" And he says, "How the hell do you do that?" So anyhow, Shelley and I and Alvin Stoller, who were top drummers in Hollywood studios, and wonderful, wonderful players.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it was a physical thing.
Sure.
And it was a very hard physical thing. You had to be very strong and your foot, especially Louis Prima insisted on boom, 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 with the bass drum going all the time.
So 4 on the floor all the time.
All the time, yes. Wow. 4 going all the time.
Wow.
And the hi-hat, close hi-hat, and get very definite sound with the accent coming on 2 and 4.
Yes.
Now, I know the shuffle had been around, in blues and rhythm and blues, but I don't believe it was ever used in that kind of musical situation.
That fast jazz kind of tempo.
Right.
Yeah.
And then things started to happen. I'm in the book, the Roots of Rock Drumming, that Daniel Glass. I'm sure you know Daniel Glass and Steve Smith. They wrote it.
Great drummers, both of them, right?
Great drummers. And by the way, Steve did the forward to the book. Did you have a chance to read it?
I did. It was wonderful. And
He's
obviously,
wonderful. He did it on a going to Russia with Journey.
Is that right?
And he did it on a plane to Russia. Rob Wallace, Hudson Music, who I adore. He's a wonderful man and a great innovator. And I just had the pleasure of spending some time with him in Las Vegas doing book signing, and I appeared on podcasts and TV shows and live showrooms where I actually played a little bit too, and interviewed and all that. Wonderful. And when we did the book signing, at first it started out very slow, and I said, "Oh my God, I hope some people come."
Sure.
Well, within about a half hour to an hour, there were over 200 people there.
That's
and
wonderful.
I signed for 3.5 hours, and and some really good people. I mean, some important people in Vegas.
That's incredible. Good for you, Bob.
And,
good for you.
Thank you very much. And anyhow, one thing led to another, and then I went into the. I'm playing with Andy Williams, and I don't need to be dropping names. I'm just.
Well, these are your coworkers.
Yeah. So I met Andy Williams and on tour once when it was Kay Thompson and the Williams brothers. And Andy became a good friend. Anyhow, he went into the Caesar's Palace, and he asked me to go in with him. And so I did the engagement, and one night, a fella came in by the name of Jerry Mercer, and I was on the Sammy Kaye band with him. The reason I was Sammy Kaye. The reason I was with Sammy Kaye, I wasn't particularly a fan of that music, but it was a very good paying job, and it was a very good orchestra for what they did. And that's another story of how that evolved.
Sure.
But mainly, I played with the big bands like Maynard Ferguson. I mean, some big swinging bands too.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so what was I saying just now?
We were talking about Jerry Mercer, working with Jerry Mercer.
Okay, so, right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you for reminding me.
You bet.
So Jerry Mercer, I said, so what are you doing, Jerry? He said, well, I just have an agency, Creative Enterprises, and would you like to be my partner? I said, well, I don't know anything about the agency business. So anyhow, I decided to try it. So we opened up an office in Las Vegas, and this is another situation that evolved into something very big for me.
Yes, yeah, another major shift in your career.
A very big shift.
Yes.
So I was, at the time, doing a lot of work in Puerto Rico with many people, Tony Martin, Eddie Fisher, Frankie Lane, you know, just all kinds of people that whenever they go to Puerto Rico, they invite me to come and play for them.
Yeah.
Well, I figured being in the agency business, you got to sell acts. So when I went to Puerto Rico, I brought three acts with me. I didn't actually bring it with me. I brought the promo of them with me, and I sold it to Mr. Piro, Louis Piro, who was the owner of the El San Juan Hotel in Puerto Rico. So I booked these three acts, and at $4,000 a piece a week, plus the rooms, plus transportation, and so this amounted to like $12,000 a week total gross.
Goodness.
And my commission was going to be 15%, which is roughly $1,200 and $600 to $1,800 a week.
It's good money.
Well, I came back, and I told Jerry, and I was very excited. And I said, and by the way, what did you do while I was gone? He says, well, my wife doesn't like me to go out at night, you know. And I said, but Jerry, you can't be in the entertainment business, as little as I know of it. You can't be in the entertainment business and stay home.
Right.
You've got to go out and find groups and try to find rooms for them to appear in.
Sure.
So anyhow, to make a long story short, that partnership didn't work out very well. But I did have 3 groups booked for a year. So I said, I'll tell you what, Jerry, I've got 3 books booked for a year, and it comes to quite a sizable amount. I'll split it with you, but as far as being partners, I don't think this is going to work out. So I kind of paid him off, and I took over, and one thing led to another, and I wound up, not only playing with stars, but I wound up like booking stars.
Sure.
And at one point, I had 76 lounge bands. Working.
That's amazing.
And at any time of the week or month or day, I had probably about 15 groups in Las Vegas.
It's incredible.
And on every marquee, I had at least one of my groups appearing there. And so I got quite successful and started booking and handling the acts that I at one time was playing for, but now I'm actually handling them. I'm booking them.
Yeah. And you know, you're at this point, you're a highly successful drummer yourself, a major career playing with stars in Vegas. You know, you didn't have to, and it sounds like you learned pretty much kind of on your own. One of the things that I was really impressed with your book was you talk about the business side of music, and you give tips for success in the music business. Can you say a little bit about that?
Well, yes. Thank you for asking. Well, it's like life in itself. The important thing is work hard. You know, practice. Have a lot of tremendous perseverance. You know, have a good attitude. Attitude is very important. And be appreciative and mingle. Always get your name out there and try to mingle with people. Try to get known. And there's many like situations, but perseverance is, I would probably say, is the most important element, and putting in a lot of work in your craft. And if you're going to play, and if you're going to be known, and if you want to be good, don't be lazy. Practice a lot and work very hard. And one thing will lead to another, and try to, when an opportunity arrives, try to go to whatever opportunity like presents itself at that particular time. And but anyhow, in the book, I have many other. You know, at this particular time, I can't think of everything, but But if people would like to buy the book, I mean, it's I think they'll find it very interesting, and it's very informative.
It really
about
is.
Not only music but business-wise.
Absolutely.
And the entertainment business. And of course, I've been in Vegas since 1950, so it's I had many experiences, you know, and of course, one of my biggest experiences was how it evolved, where I became conductor and musical director for Elvis Presley.
Yes, let's please talk about that, Bobby. I've got a bunch of Elvis questions for you, but tell me what comes up for you, just some of your memories and stories of working with Elvis.
Of course. Very good. Thank you for asking. I was, as I said, I was an agent. And I was too busy now to play, because I was very busy, booking acts and creating. And I created a two-wall situation for Robert Belay that people are still talking about it. A two-wall is where the hotel pays for the entertainment, and they don't pay the star, but they pay for the band, they pay for the publicity, and they pay for the culinary workers. And then the act and the hotel split 50-50 on it. Now, so I created that with with Robert Goulet. Anyhow, you asked me a question about how it evolved with Elvis Presley.
Sure.
Well, I'm booking acts, and as I said, I had a very good reputation, because to me, honesty is the most important element, the most important feature that anybody, I believe, could have. And I tried to be, I was not interested in how much commission I was going to make. I was interested in like creating and booking acts that would do very well for that particular property. So every property had its own had its own merits and had its own needs. And I studied and learned to put exactly the right type of act in the right room. So it got to a point where the entertainment directors in Las Vegas kind of trusted me, and and they would give me their open dates. Mm-hmm. Well, this made my life very easy, and I became quite successful.
Yeah.
And so through that, I started booking many things mm-hmm. at the Flamingo Hotel, and I became friends with Bill Miller, the entertainment director.
Okay.
And Bill told me, he says, Bobby, we have a new hotel that we're building called the International. Hmm. And I really like you, and I like you to be musical director there for the lounge area. I said, well, thank you, Bill. That sounds wonderful. Who's going to be in the showroom? He says, Harry James. Wow. I said, well, you couldn't get a better man than Harry James.
Yeah.
So anyhow, about 2 or 3 weeks before opening, maybe 4 weeks, Bill Miller called. He says, Harry James reneges and does not want to do it for whatever reason.
Wow.
I'd like you to be the musical director for the showroom and the lounges, for the Flamingo and for the International. Mm. And we're bringing in hair show from Broadway for our legitimate theater.
Yes.
And I'd like you to be musical director for that too.
Wow.
I said, well, that's wonderful, Bill. I really appreciate it. But I didn't have that much experience as a conductor, you know.
Okay.
So I studied at UNLV. I took a crash course.
Wow.
And I, you know, drumming is a situation where a drummer knows the tempos and things. He knows, you know.
That's right.
I mean, so the tempos is of utmost importance,
right,
for a drum chair, to learn the tempos and not play the exact tempos every time. So I knew tempos from playing drums. So anyhow, so I got a call from Bill Miller again. He says, Bobby, Elvis Presley is going to be opening. So first we have Barbra Streisand, and then we have Elvis Presley, but Colonel Parker wants to meet with you. Elvis's manager. So I met with Colonel Parker, and he said, I know you're musical director for the hotel, but I would like you to be musical director and conductor for Elvis, and we'll pay you an extra sum, you know, separate from the hotel, where you still retain your position as musical director for the hotel.
It's incredible.
So I said, well, that's absolutely wonderful. So they had me, the hotel gave me permission to fly to Los Angeles. And I brought the lead trumpet player with me, Art Vasquez.
Okay.
I said, what is about to happen? I needed somebody to be there to prove that you know, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. When you get the call from Colonel Parker about Elvis, and they're asking you to do it, what are your thoughts and feelings about all of this?
Well, my thoughts were a little scary.
Yeah,
but I knew music. I had studied at Manhattan School of Music. I studied percussion, and so I knew I played vibes. I studied with Terry Snyder at the he was the percussionist for the Perry Como show, and I would go on every week. Yeah. Then I was playing with the Latin bands up in the Catskill Mountains at that time, and studied percussion. So I knew, you know, from playing vibes and playing timpani and playing bells and xylophone and marimba and all that.
Sure. So
I was acquainted with the musical aspect of percussion.
Yes.
Besides just playing, which percussion, to me, drums is probably the most important instrument in an orchestra.
As a drummer, I can agree. Yeah.
Well, I could give you a very quick example.
Sure.
Is one time I'm playing with the house band at the Sahara Hotel, and I'm playing for George Burns and Ray Robinson.
Oh wow!
You know, we're rehearsing.
Yeah.
And so I go I go home, to change,
Yeah.
and I lived on the west part of town. There was only one way to get through. There was an underpass, only one underpass.
Okay.
Unfortunately, coming back, there was a rainstorm, and that underpass got flooded.
Wow.
Well, to make a long story short, I couldn't make the job.
Sure.
And because I couldn't make the job, the show didn't go on.
Yep, that's right.
Because if a trumpet player was missing or a saxophone player,
Right.
I'm just trying to tell people the importance of drumming. A drummer is like a very focal point in an orchestra.
No
and
question.
without drums, you don't have an orchestra.
That's right. And
So anyhow,
you were leading like 40 to 60 piece orchestras at that time, right? I mean,
okay. So what happened was when we opened up, we had with Elvis, we had the Sweet Inspirations, the Imperials, and Elvis had his own personal wonderful group, back in then.
Sure.
Could you put the light, please? And then they requested 24 strings and a full orchestra. So I had about 46-piece orchestra, and with the Sweet Inspirations and the Imperials, that kind of made it like 56.
Wow.
And with his group of 8, people, his own personal group,
yes,
that made it like 64.
Wow.
So it was a really beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Anyhow, they flew me out to Hollywood, Colonel Parker.
Yeah.
And we went to RCA Studios, and I was the guest of honor. And they had me sit in the front of a long, like, table, of a conference table, with all the executives of MGM Studios and RCA Records and whatever.
Wow.
And they put me in the front of the table. So I told Colonel Parker, I said, if you don't mind, Colonel Parker, could you please seat me somewhere else? I don't feel comfortable sitting in front of the table with all these top executives.
Sure.
He says, no, Bobby, you're our guest of honor. You sit right there.
Amazing.
And to my left sat Elvis and Colonel Parker sat to my right. And,
what were your first impressions of Elvis?
Well, he was wonderful, man. He was wonderful. He was a gentleman. He was wonderful. We drove up to his home in Hollywood, and the big gates. There's a big gate, and some big dogs were in the back of the gate, and there was maybe about 100 little girls, outside the gate scratching away, you might say.
Yeah.
To try to get to Elvis.
Sure.
And I came. We entered, and he welcomed me, and we had a wonderful time. After the next couple of weeks, maybe 4 weeks, whatever it was, we spent time listening to tunes, and when he'd get excited, I'd get excited. We'd pick out the tunes for the first show, and we wound up with some wonderful tunes that we all loved, and some of his people were there, and he had a lot of his friends and some of the musicians, his personal groups. So we'd all get together and pick out the tunes.
Did you did you also get to play drums with Elvis as well as?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I conducted.
Got it.
I didn't need to play drums. They had a wonderful drummer, Ronnie Tutz.
Ronnie Tutz, amazing drummer, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
A wonderful drummer, man.
Yeah. He
was just wonderful. And if I ever had to, I would be prepared too. But
yes.
Ronnie, fortunately, he was wonderful, and he never got ill, so there was never any necessity.
Yeah.
But he was just a wonderful player, and so were his other players.
Yeah.
So we picked out the tunes, and it came time for the opening, and Kirk Kerkorian, the chairman of the board of International and the MGM, a multi-billionaire and a wonderful, wonderful man, told me to go down to his tailor and have a tuxedo made.
Wow.
And I did that. So when it came to opening night, he asked me to be a host and greet the stars.
Wow.
The first, it was 2,200 of elites, people in the audience. Yeah. Every star in Hollywood, on Broadway, and recording, and you name it, Cary Grant, Tony Curtis, Elizabeth Taylor, you name it, the biggest singing stars, whatever.
It's amazing.
So as I'm walking with Elvis for the opening, my dressing room was next to his. And he said, "Bobby, who's out there?" So I started naming. He said, "Oh, my God." He says, "I'm kind of nervous." This is a story. It's also in the book.
Yes.
He says, "I'm kind of nervous." And I said, "Well, Elvis, don't be nervous. They're just people out there. Yeah. You know, they think of them with no clothes on. Yeah. And also think of them sitting on a toilet seat. You know, they're just people that do everything that every normal people do." So,
sure.
So he was felt a lot more relaxed. Yeah. And he was, and he gave me the thumbs up sign. You know, as we opened it.
That's fantastic.
And it was amazing show. Yeah. And it will go down in history.
Yes.
This was July 1969, July 31st, 1969. And by the way, I'm being interviewed tomorrow for the 50th anniversary.
That's right.
On the Ed Bernstein television show here in Vegas at 9:30 in the morning, and it'll be shown all through the West Coast, possibly places on the East Coast.
That's fantastic.
And so Ed is interviewing tomorrow morning at 9:30, and that's the reason I came back very early from San Francisco.
Sure. Yeah. Well, happy anniversary. That's a huge deal. 50th anniversary.
Tomorrow is the 50th. Yes. It was July 31st, 1969. A day, like Roosevelt said, would go down in infamy.
That's right. That is incredible. Yeah. So you calmed Elvis down, and it sounded like it was an incredible show. I was curious to know, were you nervous, and who calmed you down?
Well, I'll tell you, I wasn't. I knew I was prepared. Yeah. And when I'm prepared, I wasn't nervous. Yeah. And I was just very excited and thrilled. Yeah. At this massive happening in show business. Sure. Which, in today, even today, 50 years later, people are talking about that situation. Yeah. Of July 31st, 1969, as the biggest happening in show business, and there were many big stars, many big stars. Right. But nothing compared to that particular opening and that particular show.
Yeah, and I was trying to think when I was reading that story about what would be the equivalent today, because this is sort of like, people don't know, but like this was the Super Bowl kind of thing, or maybe even bigger, of music. You know, all the TV stations were there, and the media and the stars. Is that fair to say, the Super Bowl of music, or would you equate it to something different?
No, I would say it was probably maybe even bigger than the Super Bowl.
Even bigger, yeah.
Because Super Bowl happens once a year. Yeah. This happens once a lifetime. Right. This is only once in a lifetime. Yeah. And I have been with many stars. I mean, Lena Horne, Judy Garland. Yeah. Whatever, you name them. As I said, I had the opportunity to play for every star. Right. Fortunately, because I was with the relief band that paid twice as much as the regular band. Right. There was only one star that I didn't play for, and that was Betty Hutton. Okay. And she came in with her own drummer. And at the time, and you might know him as Remo Belly.
Yeah.
And,
Heard of Remo.
I'm sure you're acquainted with Remo.
Sure.
Well, Remo and I became a dear friend of mine.
Wonderful.
And needless to say, a multi-millionaire from the drumhead that he created or that he wound up with.
Yeah.
There's a long story about that too.
It's amazing. Yeah. Can I ask you a couple of more Elvis questions, because I
of course, absolutely.
I'd love to hear the Remo questions, but since we're on the stories with Elvis,
of course.
The whole thing of Elvis has left the building, because these were a string of shows. The first one was legendary, but a string of shows together. The whole thing of Elvis left the building. Did you come up with that and create that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, there was a man who was kind of working for the Elvis family, and for Tom Diskin, and Tom Diskin was Elvis's, Colonel Parker's personal assistant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this man came up with Elvis has left the building after, I believe, the first or second show, and it became a thing where it became quite famous.
Yeah.
Actually, because and many other things, but there's many situations that happened.
Yeah.
With Elvis, he had a wonderful sense of humor, and sometimes very caustic type of sense of humor, in a way that not caustic and being mean, but being funny.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of that.
Yes,
Joe
sure.
Esposito, his personal friend and kind of like assistant that he spent time with in the service in the Army.
Yeah.
So they became very close friends. Well, it was Joe's birthday after one of the shows, and the bakery made him a gigantic 7-layer cake of about maybe 6 foot round, all around. Yeah. And I was just dying to get a piece of it.
Sure.
So anyhow, they put candles in, and Elvis had Joe blow out the candles, and as he had him blow out the candles, he pushed his face into the cake.
Oh no!
well, that ended my appetite for the 7-layer cake.
Right. That's fantastic.
But Elvis had a wonderful sense of humor. He was funny, and he loved to have his guys around him all the time, and he enjoyed himself. But unfortunately, it was very difficult for him too, because he was not able to go out in public. Otherwise, people would scratch away. They would choke him to death.
Right.
They would, for instance, after one of the shows, I'm in the casino, and I'm having a 7-Up or something, and girls would come down. Oh, you're Bobby Morris, Elvis conductor. Oh, we would do anything if we could meet Elvis.
Yeah, sure.
Well, my dressing room was next to his, so I decided to invite some of them backstage, and because his dressing room was very close to mine.
Yes.
And in his, there were many stars, like Tom Jones, Humperdinck, all Danny Kaye, all the big stars of the day that were appearing in Vegas.
Sure.
So they would congregate after the show and come to see Elvis, and he wanted some breathing space.
Right.
So he would come into my dressing room once in a while just to like relax, man.
Sure.
Just to sit down and relax. Yeah. Well, he came in one time, and there were these little girls there, and I said, girls, this is say hello to Mr. Elvis Presley. Inevitably, one or two of them would faint.
Yeah.
And they would go, oh my God, Yeah. And it was he had that kind of presence where he was like a living god. I mean, he was
Yes.
absolutely
Yeah.
like just an amazing
Yeah.
figure, and musically and literally. I mean, he's
Absolutely.
just a wonderful person.
Yeah. And you were really with him at the top of his game in the late 60s, early 70s. You write in your
Yes,
book, you write that
yes.
you didn't see the struggles that he went through later in the late 70s.
No, I didn't.
No.
I got very, very busy in the
Yeah.
entertainment business, and it was very difficult for me to because I was still booking acts, and you can't. How many hats can you wear? You know,
Right.
it's very,
Right.
very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a situation arose with Bill Cosby that I would rather not go through at this time. It's very distasteful to me, you know.
Okay. Yep. That's fine. Can I ask, when was the last time you saw Elvis, and what was that interaction like?
The last time I saw Elvis was possibly at the Sahara Tahoe, and it was very friendly. I mean, very nice, and he was always very pleasant to me, and very cordial and friendly and very nice. We were friends, you know, and I had spent time, you know, picking out music and picking out like different arrangements that I felt would be very worthy of his presence, you know.
Yes. Now, one of the things that he did that I really love, and I don't know if you had anything to do with this, Bobby, but he did a medley, the Little Sister and the Beatles Get Back medley. Did you put that together with him?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I put it together or if it was already there. Remember.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't.
That's okay. Totally. You know, it was obviously a very sad, huge thing in 1977. I mean, most of the world can say where they were when Elvis died. And, you know, my mom actually had tickets to the show in Augusta, Maine that he was going to be coming to. Where were you, Bobby, when you found out that Elvis had passed?
Well, as I said, I was still in Las Vegas, very, very heavily involved in the entertainment business and about to accept a few positions as entertainment director, and doing very well. And I heard about this, and needless to say, it was one of the sorriest, one of the lowest days of my life, because I really, really cared for him, and for him to pass away and so untimely, and in such a horrible way, it was unnecessary, and I'm sorry that Colonel Parker couldn't at one time they gotten a hold of him and send him on an island with about 10 or 20 girls, and just parachuted some food and drink on it so he could come down to earth and come down to reality, you know. Because life got very unrealistic and impossible for him. It became impossible, and to respect that he was not able to enjoy life anymore. He couldn't go anywhere. He couldn't do anything. And it was like, where's the joy? But you know, he was like a prisoner in his own body, in his own room, and in his own environment. And it was very unfortunate.
Absolutely.
And I was very, very saddened by it. I really, truly loved him, and I wish to God that he would have taken better care of himself, and it didn't happen.
Of course. Yeah, it's a sad, tragic, tragic loss.
To die at 43 years old was totally unnecessary, and uncalled for, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, thankfully you had that time with him, even though a very sad, tragic
Yes.
loss, and
Yes.
you made history together. So thank you for that.
Yes. Well, that day in 1960, that engagement is history. I'm on recordings, live recordings with him, and it was a joy being with him at the time. But I was very heavily involved in the entertainment business too.
Yes,
and it made it very difficult to do both,
How did you manage all of that, Bobby, with your music, the music business? You talked about your personal life in there. How did you find the balance for yourself with all of that?
Well, it was hard. I mean, like personal-wise and marriage-wise, I mean, it was very difficult to stay married and, to have a normal relationship going, and consequently, I went through a few wives, and Joan is my fifth wife, and we've been together now for 33 years, and
wow, amazing,
and she's wonderful and very intelligent,
fantastic,
and she's a scholar and graduate of Barnard Columbia University, and
amazing,
and very talented, and former Miss Nevada, and and one of the finalists in the Miss America thing. A beautiful girl, but more than that, very intelligent, and I'm very happy, and I feel I feel that honored and to finally have found the right person to spend the rest of my life with.
It's wonderful. Congratulations on that. Yeah, Joan sounds like a keeper, Bobby, right?
Thank you very much. Yes, she's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's very very intelligent and very up on things, and very big help.
That's great
to me.
It's wonderful.
I wish I had met her. I wish she was my first wife, and I would have never had to reach out to anybody else.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, but that's life,
That's right. Yeah, we all have a journey. We all have a journey, and some of the ups and downs. You've had some amazing ups, and I was also struck by, you talked about perseverance. If I can ask you a couple more questions.
Sure, of course.
I was curious about how are you doing health-wise, because you've talked about some of the challenges that you've gone through.
Well, I've had prostate cancer, and fortunately, I've gone to San Francisco on a few occasions, and Dr. Shinohara and Dr. Roach. Ironically, Dr. Roach is his uncle. His uncle was Max Roach.
Oh, is that right?
Wow. Yeah, and his name is Mac Roach, and I guess, and it's wonderful. And I might give him credit for saving my life on quite a few occasions. And it's been I've lived with prostate cancer for 20 years. And fortunately, it's being held in abeyance, and I'm still kicking.
You are still kicking. That's perseverance right there, Bobby.
I'm kicking and playing drums every day. And
are you still playing?
I'm playing drums. I've got 3 homes. So I've got a home. My main home is Vegas, and I've got a large home here. And I've got a few sets of drums. I've got Sunlight drums from China that I advertised for, and Slingerland that I've been with for years.
Yes.
And then I've got 3 sets in Utah.
Wow.
And I've got a couple of sets in Florida. Amazing. And I've been appearing with some of the college bands, the jazz orchestras.
I love it.
And playing a composition of drumology which, by the way, if you look in the book,
okay,
in the book, I think on page 3 or something, it'll tell you how to get into where you could. There's 2 different versions of drumology that I did with my New Orleans jazz band and with the Sunspot album.
Wow.
And also maybe 15 or 20 more pictures.
Amazing.
On it.
Amazing.
And so if you have a chance, take a look at it.
Sure.
You might find it interesting. It's in the flyer of the book, actually. Bobby Morris, My Las Vegas. The flyer that's part of the drumology is introducing some of the acts that I've been with and all that.
That's fantastic. Drumology. I will definitely check that out. Do you have any tips on how to practice your famous shuffle?
Yes. It's everything. Everything is like baby steps. I mean, obviously, you're not going to try to practice at the insane tempos that we were forced to play. But if you do it nice and slow, everything is slow. Practice everything very slow.
Yeah.
To get speed and to get your hands up to where you want it. You don't want to ever practice or try to go fast. You want to practice very slow until you're very comfortable. On the shuffle, if you do the left hand, just practice the left hand and do a but try to get the accent on 2 and 4 to coordinate with the accent of 2 and 4 with the hi-hat, and have both accents come down in unison together and to get a very crisp sound.
Okay.
And do it very, very slowly, and then raise the tempo a little bit where you're comfortable, and keep raising the tempo until you could play and you could be comfortable at doing up tempos.
That's great.
And at the shuffle thing.
Yeah. So on the snare and the hi-hat.
Yeah.
Very slowly. Yes.
Do the snare with the left hand. Do the hi-hat with the right hand on the closed hi-hat.
Yes.
Play 4/4 on the bass drum. Keep a nice steady feel on the bass drum. But do it very crisp and very steady. And keep trying to emulate that sound and the rhythm at faster tempos. I got known for that, but I did grow up in 52nd Street as in the bebop stage, and I'd like to tell you, if I may, a little story.
Please.
I was playing with Red Rodney and Red Rodney, the jazz trumpet player and wonderful guitar player. I forgot his name. And anyhow, we keep hearing that there's a new music coming down from Harlem. It's called bebop. And so we're all waiting for them to open up I believe the Deuces or Downbeat Club. And I'm with Kay Winding. I'm sitting with Kay Winding. And we all go down between our sets to hear this new music. And on trumpet was Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow.
On alto was Charlie Parker. Trombone, J.J. Johnson. On bass, Curly Russell. Piano, Bud Powell. And drums, Max Roach.
It's quite a band.
And they opened up with this up tempo, and they up there,
Yeah.
So this is quite an interesting story. Kay Winding was a wonderful trombone player, but Stan Kenton was walking out. I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to take this trombone. I'm going to put it on the street at 52nd Street and let a cab driver run over it."
He had had enough.
He said, "What he's doing is impossible."
Yeah, right.
But it was, anyhow, that created a new type of music, a new wave,
yes,
a new type of music. And I fell in with it, with the bebop stage, and I had good teachers too. Jimmy Chapin was a good friend and a teacher of mine.
One of the best,
and,
right? Jim Chapin. Yeah.
Wonderful. And at one time, he challenged me to go through his book from the beginning to end, and gave me a tempo, not fast, but zing, jing, 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 and to start from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And I did it, and he was very impressed, and I was very impressed with myself that I could do it.
You should be. Yeah.
It was very difficult to do, but I loved the right hand playing time with the left hand and the right foot, playing against time, and kind of complimenting the instrumentalist that's playing, in front. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience for me.
Yeah.
But anyhow, you try to go through one thing to another and another and another, and all I could tell is young drummers out there is never give up, man. Don't just persevere and never give up, and just keep working hard, and don't stop.
Yeah.
And just try to get everything you can, and try to learn from anybody you can, and pick up whatever you can from whomever. And so this has been my experience, and
it's great advice.
It's been a joy. I mean, I've had many experiences and funny things, like it's in the book. I'm playing at the Frontier when I first came to Las Vegas, to go back many, many years to the beginning. And I'm playing for this movie actor who was a B-movie actor in cowboy movies. And anyhow, he invited me to breakfast. And so I took him to breakfast. He took me to breakfast. It was 49 cents at the time. And I think you might know who I'm talking about.
Well,
he wound up to be the governor of California and the president of the United States.
Right. Ronald Reagan, right?
Ronald Reagan, man.
Amazing stuff.
Ronald Reagan.
So you met.
I would call him Ronnie. I said, whose turn is it for breakfast, Ronnie? Yours or mine? He said, well, I think it's fine, Bobby.
Right.
So we go out for 49 cents, and have breakfast. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. Yeah. And many experiences in life and learning and history. Yeah. And then I'm with Louis Preman, and it's in the book.
Yeah.
Fellow Peter Lawford, a movie actor, comes in. And he brings his brother-in-law, who was Senator Kennedy.
Yeah.
So Senator Kennedy and Peter Lawford became big fans of Louis Keeley and the Witnesses. They loved our music. So everywhere we worked, in Moulin Rouge in Hollywood, the Copacabana in New York, the Chez Paris in Chicago, Latin Casino in Philly, there's Peter Lawford and Senator Kennedy. Said at one point, Peter Lawford introduced us. I says, Bobby, I'd like you to meet Senator Kennedy. I said, oh, Senator Kennedy, what a pleasure it is to meet you. He said, just call me Jack. So we were invited by Frank Sinatra to do the inauguration.
Wow.
In, I believe, 1961, 62, 61, I think, the presidential. And, of course, Kennedy invited us personally.
Yeah.
So we did the inauguration, and every star in Hollywood and Broadway was there, and
amazing, and
recording stars. And my God, it was just. Anyhow, we're up on the 32nd floor of the Sheraton, and I'm playing with the rhythm section for Sarah Vaughan. And I guess the drummer wasn't around, so I sat in with them.
Wow.
And everybody was sitting in with us, and St. Frank Sinatra and Harry Belafonte and Sarah Ella Fitzgerald, and just everybody was up there. And in comes President-elect Kennedy and Jacqueline, his wife, would thank everybody, you know. So as they came over to me to thank me, I was going to say, Jack, I'm so proud of you. He told me to call him Jack.
Right.
But now I realized he's not Jack anymore. He's the president of the United States, you know.
Yes.
So I said, oh, Mr. President, I wish you the best. Everybody loves you, and I hope that I'm sure you're going to be the best president we ever had.
Yeah.
Anyhow, he was actually a personal friend by that time.
That's great.
But once he's president, nobody's a personal friend anymore. You know.
Sure. Yeah, he was a little busy, right? So, yeah.
He was a little busy, yes.
Yeah. So you rub an elbow with presidents. You are playing with legends like Elvis and Barbra Streisand and the Rat
Barbra Streisand,
yeah. I mean, you've had an incredible life so far, Bobby. What's next?
Well, next, let me see. What is next? Now, what do you think? A movie.
A movie. There you go. I like that idea.
We've been approached.
Sure.
Possibly by doing a movie from the book.
Yes.
And that might be, and I'm still playing, and and I'm not a kid anymore, as you know.
Sure.
But fortunately, my hands are still moving, and I'm still enjoying playing, and
It's wonderful.
I'm into jazz. I'm into sitting in with anybody I can. I'm into doing clinics.
Amazing.
And representing drum companies and things like that.
It's amazing. Are you still? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask: are you still learning and working on? I mean, I have the vision of you of like you can play anything and everything, but are there things that you're still working on?
I'm still learning and working.
That's great.
And enjoying trying new things. I love many of the young drummers today, Dave Weckl and Steve Smith, of course.
Yes.
And just a whole bunch of the new things that I'm into jazz fusion now. I'm trying all the new things and trying. I mean, there's no end to drumming.
That's right.
Drumming is endless. It's infinity. It's forever. It's like. It doesn't matter how much you know. There's always so much more to know.
Absolutely.
And you know, I spend time with Greek bands and Latin bands, and learning to play it authentically, and learning different time signatures, and doing solos in 5/8, 9/8, 7/8 times, and things like that, and trying different things and enjoying, But David, there's no end to learning.
That's wonderful.
There's no end. Steve Smith is a wonderful, wonderful human being and a wonderful player. And in my discussions with him, he said he practices every day for a couple of hours every day, and he is still trying new things, still trying to learn new things. And you know, Steve is about as good as you could get. He's the most versatile, wonderful player of any kind of music, and he's a wonderful human being, a wonderful player, and I've met some wonderful people, including, of course, Rob Wallace with Hudson Music, and we had a wonderful time in Las Vegas, traveling around and doing book signing things. And he took a chance on us to do the book, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate him.
Yeah.
And
Well, Bobby, you are an inspiration, and you're inspiring me. I'm going to go practice. It's really such a treat and pleasure to have you on the show. The book is called My Las Vegas. Go buy it today. Bobby Morris,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being on Musicians on the Show. Musicians on the Record.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me, David. It's a pleasure. And I really appreciate this conversation we had.
It's been a treat.
And I hope very soon in the future we'll meet in person.
I would love that, Bobby. That'd be fantastic. That'd be great. Yeah, and I hope they do make. I do hope they make a movie. I don't know who you have any choices of who you would pick to play you?
Well, yes, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Douglas would be wonderful.
Okay.
He would be wonderful as,
Very cool.
And I might have Kirk Douglas, his father, playing me, and the older Bobby Morris.
There you go. Right. Excellent. I love it. Michael Douglas, sort of a father and son team.
Yeah, father and son team. Yes.
Let's make it happen, Bobby.
Okay. Thank you very much, David. Wow, man, we could go on forever with this conversation.
I know. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a pleasure. And really, I hope very much that we meet in the future and we could really spend some time together.
Me too. That would be wonderful, Bobby. Thank you so much for your music and really being on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.